Welcome, everybody, to today's program. This is the continuation of Radha Krishna Prabhu's realizations and sharing of his association with Srila Gurudev and all the wonderful things that happened in his presence. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Peshtaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Niti Namne. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Peshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshtarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody and welcome Radha Krishna Prabhu. This is a continuation of Srila Gurudev's memories. And there's another program that's going on simultaneously that you'll hear about, which is the 80th anniversary celebration of Srila Gurudev's Vyasa Puja. Just so you know which one is which. So first I'm going to introduce again His Grace Radha Krishna Prabhu, because in posterity, when these programs are seen, these recordings are seen, people may not see them in a particular order, and so they may hear about him for the first time through this presentation. So His Grace Radha Krishna Prabhu embarked on his spiritual journey in 1984, joining the movement in Singapore. Under the guidance of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami, he received initiation in Melbourne, Australia in July 1990. After quitting his job in April 1992, for 3 years, he traveled extensively with his spiritual master, serving as his personal secretary and servant. Later, when his spiritual master went to college, he took on the role of personal cook and servant in Dallas for the next 2 years. To advance his academic pursuits, when His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami traveled to the United Kingdom and enrolled in a PhD program at the prestigious Cambridge University, His Grace Radha Krishna Prabhu was invited to join the Houston Temple, where he assumed the role of Director of Education, which he still holds. He has since been instrumental in establishing beginner Sastric classes and offering Bhakti Sastri and Bhakti Vaibhava courses there. A holder of both degrees, he has been traveling to Hong Kong and China, preaching and teaching local devotees since 2005. He has also been visiting Australia, taking association and preaching in cities like Perth and Sydney. In 2006, ISKCON Seattle extended an invitation for him to teach Bhakti Sastri to their community. He accepted the invitation and played a pivotal role in guiding the devotees to graduate and set up their own education center. Furthermore, he introduced a Bhakti Vaibhava group to the area. Although he makes it a point to visit Seattle annually, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced him to limit his travel. In addition to his educational endeavors, His Grace Radha Krishna Prabhu is involved in deity worship and mentors youth groups in Houston. He has conducted japa retreats under the auspices of His Holiness Romapada Swami. He also provides and conducts the ISKCON Disciple Course. As part of his responsibilities, he works closely with the temple management to facilitate Sunday feast cooking. As a consultant and advisor, he plays a crucial role in temple management and serves on the board of the directors for ISKCON of Houston. He serves as a property trustee for one of the properties owned by ISKCON of Houston. Furthermore, he holds the esteemed position of ISKCON Initiating Spiritual Master. Welcome, Radha Krishna Prabhu. Please enlighten us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada. First, let me thank all the organizers for asking me to speak again about Srila Gurudev and my memories and experiences with him and what I went through. Um, I want to preface by saying that once Gurudev said that the expert spiritual master can judge the nature of the conditioning of the soul within the entanglement of this material world, and he can prescribe proper duties for the particular disciple to perform, which will free the disciple from such entanglement. A disciple doesn't have to speculate on what he or she should do, but like any patient and intelligent disciple should submit himself or herself uh, to the guidance of the spiritual master, who will recommend or prescribe the proper medicine to follow the course of medicine and recovery. And Srila Gurudev said, if I'm just paraphrasing, and if the faith, and if with the faith a disciple follows this description or prescription, the result is guaranteed. So he was saying how to be submissive. One has to be intelligent and at the same time submissive to the order of Guru. And that is the process which requires, he said, constant practice. And he also said it means many mistakes and that requires a lot of humility. To make mistakes, to accept chastisement is part of the process of advancement. So Gurudev gave an example of Srila Prabhupada being chastised by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He said Prabhupada was in a lecture, and at that time, Prabhupada also told Gurudev that he appreciated the chastisement more than the praises he ever got from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. What had happened was Srila Prabhupada was in the lecture, but he was talking to a friend, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur then asked him, "Oh, so you want to talk? You want to come and give here a lecture?" And then he started to be very, very sarcastic. So Prabhupada said he remembered that the best, and he felt that more than anything else, he felt himself to be more benefited by that chastisement than all the praises he had ever received. So Srila Gurudev said, this is what a disciple should require. But then he also clarified, he said, but many times a disciple will become upset. And he said, especially a neophyte disciple. Then he said there's a difference between a progressive disciple and a neophyte disciple. He said when a neophyte disciple gets a little correction, he will immediately or she will immediately blame the guru or think this is unfair. You have blamed me unfairly, not understanding that there's no question of such a thing. The disciple is like a child, the guru is like a parent. So Gurudev said that the parent certainly knows what is best for the child. And he said, because of our false ego, because we are not physically like a child, because we are like 20, 30, up to 60 years, when we get chastised by our parent, even though spiritually we may be very young, we sometimes feel insulted. And our spiritual life becomes very disturbed. Then it leads to Guru Aparad, and then everything becomes disturbed. Then there's no possibility of advancing properly or getting good instruction. So Gurudev said, if the spiritual manager or spiritual master cannot correct the disciple, then what is the meaning of a guru or disciple relationship? Then he says, what the use of the relationship? Yeah. So when I reflect on this and what I went through, I can say I needed all the chastisement to become a better devotee, a better person. Otherwise, the mind is always wanting an easier way out. And Gurudev is always our well-wisher. Now, I want to go, I'm thinking about the final days in Houston before Srila Gurudev went to India. On one of those days, this was around November 2001, and on one of those days, he had organized a lunch at Nanda Priya's, and he was very happy with the lunch. And he thanked Nanda Priya profusely for her excellent service. And then he said, you know, Nandapriya, you could go to Dallas where all your friends are. And she became very happy. And he spoke so very sweetly. You know, if he wanted, Srila Gurudev can really pour out the molasses, you know. Thereafter, we walked back. We were walking back to his place, and while walking back, he was praising both Nandapriya and Gopal, how much they've done for the community, the services. And then when we approached the door to the house where he stayed, he stopped abruptly and he turned around and looked at me. He had a smile, you know, and then he said, you know, I don't know how long we are going to be here. So at that time, I didn't react. I was thinking he's just being philosophical. But in hindsight, I understood that he was trying to tell me something. Um, but anyway, he said, he then looked at me, he qualified his statement again. He said, well, not immediately, maybe 5 or 10 years at most. At most, we may have 15 years. That's what he said. Then he said, we have to become Krishna conscious. And he turned around and then he opened the door and we went in, you know. So before he left for UK from Houston, I think he was going to go back to Dallas. And then I told him my plan was to go to Vrindavan. And when I found out he was going to Mayapur, I asked him if I could come and see him also. He said, no, no, you know, you just go to Vrindavan first and then you can come to Mayapur. And then later on, I was with, I think, yes, Rita Goswami was there. And then there was a phone call. Rita Goswami was speaking to Gurudev. And then Gurudev was telling him, that, just see, you know, Radha Krishna is going to Vrindavan without me. And I was sitting there, and Maharaj was laughing, and then he had it on, I think, speakerphone. Then I was like, what? So later on, I emailed him again, and then Gurudev emailed back and said, no, no, I want you to go to Vrindavan first, and then you can come back to Mayapur. So we were in Vrindavan for about 8 days, and then on the day Srila Gurudev left, we were just flying to Mayapur, and anyway, we that day was weird also because from 3 in the morning the dogs were howling like crazy, and like three something, you know, 3:30 like that. So anyway, we got to the airport, we flew to Calcutta, and as our plane was about to board, they stopped, and then guess who got on board? Mirabai was on, and she was rushing in, and then she was sitting in the front. So we were already sat in the back, and we didn't know what was happening at the time. And when the aircraft landed after some time, Mirabai stood up and rushed out also. So we didn't know why she was rushing. So by the time we got our luggage and we left the airport, we didn't see Mirabai at all. You know, when we came to Mayapur at the reception counter, we found the receptionist was telling us that Tamal Krishna Maharaj had an accident. You know, Chaitanya Prabhu was with me. So he kept saying, you know, he's saying Gurudev had an accident, you know. Then I said, well, we would have known something, someone would have told us. And then he said, no, he said something bad happened, you know. So then I said, all right, you know, you check us in. I will go and to the Lotus building because that's where Gurudev will be. So then I left. But when I came towards the Lotus building, the whole place was quiet, and then we could just hear people singing like angels were singing, you know, because nobody was around, but the singing was going on. So then I saw some crowd up behind Lotus building. When I reached there, I think I saw uh, one of Prabhupada's disciple. They were all gathering. Then I said, what's happening? Then they said, Tamal Krishna Maharaj has left his body and they are preparing his body. And then they said they're going to take it to the temple room. So then I said, oh. And I turned around and then I ran back to the reception room and I told the devotees that, you know, we have to go to the temple because this is true. Gurudev had accident, left his body, and we should go quickly. So we went, and when I went through the temple room, And Srila Gurudev's body was already offered to, or like brought before Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan. And then they brought the body. And then as soon as I saw Srila Gurudev, I just broke down, It was terrible. I didn't know what happened after that because someone caught hold of me, and I've never cried like that in my life. Not even when my dad or even my mother left. Uh, it was even now when I recollect, it's just too much. Um, Anyway, the whole process was done, and then Srila Gurudev's body, we carried his body all the way to the Samadhi area, and we placed his body in there. Now, Srila Gurudev's eyes were open all the time, as far as I saw. Um, and when they put him in the thing, and then they put salt, and then they put the leaves on his face, and then they covered his body, and then we were all crying, and handful of sand, and we just threw and say, "This is it. We're not going to see you anymore." That was it. I know it's emotional, but just a few days ago we had the disappearance day, so it's in my mind. Anyway, after like 1 or 2 weeks in Vrindavan and Mayapur and Vrindavan, we came back to US, and I started having dreams almost on a daily basis for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I think. Continuously, Srila Gurudev will be with me, and we will be together traveling, and then I would wake up thinking Srila Gurudev is here. It was so real. It's so tangible. I could feel Gurudev, I could touch him, and so it was. But anyway, finally, I had to go to the deities and say, I can't handle this. So then the dream stopped. But anyway, Srila Gurudev appeared again after a few months later. But at that time, he was very concerned with some disciples in Europe. He mentioned the names, and then he said they're not doing well. Then I conveyed that message to some devotees in Europe, and I think they took care of that. Then later on, a couple months later, he appeared in the dream, and he was putting on his shoes and he was tying. And then he looked at me angrily and he said, I'm very unhappy. They're not taking care of my room in Dallas. So I called Maturana. I said, Maturana, you better take care of the room. So, so anyway, I wanted to share this in case, how we actually, saw what took place in Mayapur. It was too much actually. And one of the things I liked about Gurudev was, he always got his opinions from his god brothers. And he also wanted us to do the same thing, take guidance from his god brothers. He said one time, he was telling me that he said, Srila Prabhupada is not here. Therefore, he said, Prabhupada is with my god brothers. So I will take from them, I'll ask them and get their inputs before making any decisions. So he was very humble about that. He would always listen to his god brother's opinions, and then he will make decisions based on that. Occasionally, or I wouldn't say occasion, I would say on a very rare occasion, he would get the secretary's opinions on some things. I remember one time he even asked me to help him with a letter to a couple of his god brothers. So he sat down on the laptop and he started typing, and I felt weird. But I stood beside him, and then he said, "Okay, tell me what I should say." So I dictated, and he was typing. It was weird, but Gurudev was smiling as he was typing. He just wanted to show us that how we can work together, and at the same time he was showing me mercy. So nice. Another very nice thing I experienced with him was he has this bag of Jagannath Mahaprasadam, you know, um, and he would break Ekadasi fast using the Jagannath Mahaprasadam. So once in Vrindavan, he brought out his bag, and then he said, "This is Jagannath Mahaprasadam." And then he gave me a grain. This was on Dwadasi. So as soon as he gave it to me. I wanted to pop it into my mouth. And then as I was bringing up, he said, "Stop. What are you doing?" So then I said, "I don't know. I want to take prasadam." And then he said, "No, first you must say the full prayers." And then he started chanting Sariraya Vidajal and so on. Then I followed suit. He said, "We should not just take the grain, but thank the Lord and show our gratitude by chanting the prayers." Now, I was always on the impression that when you get Mahaprasadam, you just pop it, no questions asked. So every time during Ekadasi, I also have this Jagannath Mahaprasadam, and I always, before I pop it on, I think of Gurudev, I chant the prayers, and that was very nice. Um, After my first trip to Fiji, um, once we were walking, in those days in Fiji, right? I think Nityananda, you should know that you can just walk through the airport. Everyone can come up to the almost to the tarmac. So we were walking on the tarmac, and as we were about to board the aircraft, Sri Gurudev stopped, and then he turned around and he saw on the waving gallery or whatever, there were so many devotees, so many disciples, like I think about 200 devotees. And we were, and so Srila Gurudev looked at me and said, "Do you see all the devotees? What do you think about this?" And then I naturally told him, "Yes, Gurudev, they all love you so much." He was smiling and he said, "Yes, they all love me and they are envious of you." And then I was thinking why he said that. But the lesson to learn was this service is it's a privilege actually, and that there are others who also covered it as well. And uh, and and, and I had to actually serve my spiritual master very nicely. But it was only much later I realized the extent to which God brothers and God sisters can be envious, because I was naive about the whole service at that time. Um, Another time, I mean, about how naive I was. Another time, I was asked to do some service. See, this was in Mayapur, and so I had to go around to different devotees in Mayapur to get some things done for Srila Gurudev. I walked all over Mayapur looking for each individual, and then finally, it took about 4 hours actually to finish the service Srila Gurudev wanted me. So finally, I came back. Um, I was tired, exhausted, thirsty, and famished. It had been a hot day also. I returned around close to 1:30. Uh, I had completed all the tasks he had wanted me to do. When I came back to Gurudev's place, I saw the cook cleaning up and I asked if Gurudev had taken his lunch yet. He said, "Yeah, Gurudev took, he's finished, and that he said, "Yeah, you should eat now." And then the cook said, "I made pizza for Gurudev. And Gurudev really liked it." And then I looked around, I didn't see Gurudev's plate outside for cleaning. So I asked, "Where's Gurudev's plate?" He said, "Oh, he's finishing up. He doesn't want any more." I told him. And then I said, "Well, I will wait until Gurudev is completely done." But my god brother, the cook, he insisted. He said, "No, it's over. Gurudev personally told me he doesn't want anything. He's done." And then he pushed me down. He put a plate and then he put a piece of pizza. I was hesitant, for some reason about it. But I'd washed my hands from a lota, and then I thought, if what to do. But then I gave in to my hunger and I bit on the pizza. As soon as I bit on the pizza, the bell rang. Ding, 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 ding. My heart sank. Something fell out of place in the universe. And then the cook ran in to see Gurudev. Then the door swung open and the cook came running back. And then he's saying, "Gurudev wanted that piece you just bit into." He wants the same piece. I looked at him, I completely lost my appetite. And then he went back in and then came back saying that Gurudev wasn't happy. And then I said, "What did you tell him?" And he said, "Well, I told him I'll make him a new pizza, but Gurudev refused." And then we were looking at each other and the bell rang again. Then I know what it was for. I got up, washed my hands, and then my godbrother came out running again this time, and he says, "Gurudev wants to see you." I went in, and Gurudev started in a very calm voice that it was the duty of the disciple to wait for the guru to finish eating, and not before that. Um, that what I did was not proper. He also told me that I should have checked before taking prasadam. Unfortunately, I knew my god brother didn't say the truth to Gurudev about the incident. He told him what he had told Gurudev was, I came and I made a plate and ate the pizza. Um, of course, I didn't defend myself. Um, I thought there must be some reason why this is happening to me at that time. And for some reason, I had to go through this. I accepted that. I apologized to Gurudev and came out. And then I asked my God brother and said, why didn't you tell the truth? He was silent, but knowing that everyone is afraid of being chastised by Gurudev, I just accepted the outcome. But I never trusted him. Actually, this is, I always believed, or whoever the devotee is, I was believing. But since then, I never trusted him. In fact, Srila Gurudev also told me to never trust the material energy or nature ever. For he said it will always let you down. Um, because I was always thinking things will go correct. But Gurudev said, no, the material energy will confuse you, it will confuse others, and you will make mistakes. So anyway, I was always a trusting person with devotees, but after a few series of mid-adventures with devotees, I became very cautious. And I learned a lesson. Srila Gurudev's point was very important. And I also learned that I can forgive and I will not hold grudges, but I will never forget. So another time Srila Gurudev was telling me that taking prasadam is his only gratification. I'm sure many of you must have heard of that. And he said, I've given up all my sense gratification and I've taken sannyas, and the only thing I can enjoy is prasadam. And if you don't give me good prasadam, I get very disturbed. Now, another time a disciple wanted to cook for Gurudev. She was very enthused, but Gurudev didn't fancy her cooking, but he obliged. He told me go and check her cooking, and then he said to me to see if there is a need, I should improve it where needed, like that. Anyway, there was a prep she made, and I looked at it, and I felt it wouldn't pass muster with Gurudev, and told her not to serve it. She was very happy about that. She started arguing with me. She didn't like it, and I don't think she ever forgave me for that. Most of the time, the disciples, they want to cook what they want to eat, and they think Gurudev must just take it, that he should not complain. But my job was to ensure it was tasty or edible, and that there was balance, and that he was not going to get sick, and that he does not have to worry about this thing not nice, or that thing is doesn't work out properly. One time he also told me that when the disciples cook, and if they cook all looking the same color, he said he doesn't like it. He'll lose his appetite. He said they should be colorful and enticing. So there were other times also, as his secretary, he would tell me to go and chastise or tell devotees off for things they failed or made mistakes. Now, I knew he wanted the message transmitted, but in a way, they don't lose faith in their guru sometimes. So I must pick my words carefully. It was a challenge, but sometimes he would also tell me, don't change what I'm telling you, just say exactly what I'm telling you. So that was a tough one when you have to tell people off. Um, there was another nice, I won't say nice, but anyway, there was another time we were traveling to one of the cities. One lady disciple wanted to launder and iron his clothing. So Srila Gurudev told me he wanted her to do it, but she should not iron his clothing after washing, but must be completely air dry by the end of the day. He also told me that the way she dressed, the way she was wearing her sari, the way she dressed is, and he told me what there is an indication that she will do a good job, But at the same time, he said, if she blows it, she will do it big time. He warned me that I was to keep an eye out for her work and see if there's anything that was going to go. So this set of clothing, they were silk clothing, so dhoti and kurta, and we gave it to her. The first few days went great, but by the third day, she called me and she told me she had accidentally burned Gurudev's clothing. Then I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm like, what? What am I going to do? So she brought the cloth in hangers and showed me where the burn mark was. Oh God, I was devastated. And at that time, I think I didn't need any more chastisement for that day, actually. So I told her, don't worry, but just follow me and we'll talk to Gurudev. He'll not be angry with you. When I So I took her upstairs and then knocked on the door and then I went in. I told Gurudev, so and so is back. She wants to talk to you about her clothing. So Gurudev looked at me, and then we came out. And then she explained what had happened. Instead of drying the cloth on a line, she had hung the cloth on a hanger above the space heater. The hanger slipped and it fell on the heater and she grabbed the cloth very quickly, but the cloth burnt a bit right in front of where his buttons were, and there was a big brown patch there. So Gurudev looked at me and I looked at her, and then he looked at me and he said, my secretary is very intelligent. He knew if he had told me, I would have blasted him. But he brought you along, and I must say, I'm not pleased with you for burning my cloth, but what to do? Okay, you can go away. Then he didn't scold me either, and he said, I told you she was going to blow it big. Although he knew she was going to make a big mistake, still Srila Gurudev was so kind. He wanted to give her a chance to do the service for him. And he gave her the best dhoti and kurta to her. And later in the evening, he wore that same cloth with the brown patch. And he said, that's okay. What can you do? So he was very humble in that situation. Uh, Another time he was correcting me. Um, and this was funny because whatever I was doing, I moved something, he would say, that's wrong. But if I was arranging the table straight, he said, no, that's wrong. Or making his bed, he said, no, wrong, wrong. So the whole day was going on like that in the morning, actually. And then he said, oh, you're so useless. And then he went back and said, um, you're a very lazy person. And then he looked at me. Then I looked at him straight, and then I said, I'm not a lazy person. But he kept looking at me. Then I said, Gurudev, I'm not a lazy person. So then our gaze locked, and then all of a sudden he smiled and said, yeah, you're not a lazy person. Yeah, I agree. So he's always checking on my consciousness. He's pushing me, to see when I break or what, seeing how to make me, actually, he was trying to make me a better person. But boy, the method he used was very intense, and basically what I call this is that Gurudev was doing a deconstruction of me, because I'm born with a certain habit and traits, and on top of that, so much karma, whatever, and ego, So we all constructed in a certain way, and our spiritual master, he likes to help us progress quickly on the path of devotion service. So he smashes us and makes us easily manageable pieces so he can put us together very nicely. And then we can surrender, and he can bless us, and we are able to carry out his instructions very nicely. Yeah, as a manager, he said it is not, one of the things he said, and I really like and I want to share, is that he said it is not that we have to get things 100% correct all the time, he said. He said, if it's possible, it is good if others are not good. He said, if others are not cooperating, it is better to get your cooperation and get at least 60% done. You don't have to be 100%. He said Krishna loves it when you all cooperate and get something done. So that was a very good lesson. So another time, I think this was in Melbourne, 93. At that time, Nanda Kishore was there. He came from Fiji to with Gurudev. And so, no, it wasn't 93 actually, it was 80, 90 actually. So at that time, Gurudev was, I've heard of Nanda Kishore, is such a great devotee and so on. So I appreciated that. And so then, uh, so Gurudev, later on, he asked me what I thought of Nanda Kishore. I said, why, he's a very good devotee. And so she was going to smile, and it was like that. So then a couple of years later, I think um, Srila Gurudev was again talking about Nanda Kishore, and then I said to Gurudev, yeah, he's a very good role model. And then Gurudev was like, what? What do you mean he's a good role model? He's not a good role model. And I was shocked why Gurudev is saying, he's going to get married. Why do you want him to be your role model? I thought that was very funny. So then, usually when Srila Gurudev is in the bathroom, he'll be either flossing his teeth, he'll call you and he'll talk to you, or he'll be shaving, or he'll be putting on his tilak. Now, I don't know if you have seen him put on tilak. This is like a science. For Srila Gurudev will make a paste the consistency is so good that when he puts his tilak, and if you can look at the pictures of Srila Gurudev, those lines are amazing. And the way he does it is he uses a piece of cloth, and then he cleans the middle portion of the tilak with the cloth, and then he'll do the sides and everything. And then we will be watching, and then we'll be thinking, oh, he's done such a great job. And all of a sudden, Srila Gurudev will wipe it all up sometimes. And then he'll start again. So he was such a perfectionist, even in putting his tilak on. He was very, very focused on doing it such a good job, like that. Another time in Sydney, he was going to meet with some of his god brothers. Then he told me, hey, you are having a free time. What are you going to do? And then I said, oh, I probably have some association with my god brothers. It'll be good for me. Then he looked at me and he said, so my association is not good for you. I was like, no, Gurudev, it's not like that. Now, in 1995, at that time, I couldn't come back to Dallas, so I wasn't traveling with Gurudev. So he came to Melbourne, so I went to see him. At that time, I was still waiting for my visa to be processed. And when I came back to Australia, I had to borrow money in Vrindavan from Srila Gurudev to buy my tickets because I didn't have any money. So when I asked him for the money, or when I mentioned it, so he said, I'll give you the money. So when he was about to give me the money, he said, the disciple cannot take money from the guru. You must return the money. So I said, yes, Gurudev, I'll return the money. So this was like maybe 6 months, or yeah, about 3 or 4 months. So then when I met him, I gave him the money, plus I gave him extra donation. And I told him, this is the money I borrowed from you. Then he said, what money? What are you talking about? You know how Gurudev is. What are you talking about? So then I said, Srila Gurudev, I borrowed this from you in Vrindavan, and you told me that, I have to give it back to you. And then he said, I don't remember. I was surprised because Srila Gurudev never forgets anything. But somehow he said he didn't remember. Then he looked at the money and looked at me, and he took the money and he thanked me. And I left the room. Later, another devotee, I think it's Radha. Yeah, Radha was with us. Yeah. So he came running into my room and he said, Gurudev said he's so pleased with you. And I said, why? He said, you are a Brahmana because you kept your word and returned the money. Gurudev has said that many people don't return the money they borrow. And and he said they borrow the money and they hope that the person they borrowed from forgets so that they don't have to return, So anyway, that was one of the nice things that Srila Gurudev said about me, and I think I was probably over the moon. And one thing he also said about, I don't know if some of you know, maybe Yudhishthira might know. Gurudev once said that he had written many dramas on different personalities. He said he has written about Prabhupada, on Krishna, Jagannath, and on Bhagavatam and on Bhagavad Gita. But he said he wanted to write on Narishingadev. He said that. He said everything is there in the pastime of Lord Narishingadev, Prahlad Narishinga, and Hiranyakasipu. He said from the hero to the villain, it's all there. I really love to write a drama, but he never got to do that actually. Another time in New Gokula, this is a farm about maybe 2 hours outside of Sydney. Maybe this was 1993. Srila Gurudev was not happy with me from Mangala Arati. Now, I didn't know what I did wrong at that time. So he kept giving me hard stares, just staring at me, but we were going back to Sydney, and the Sydney temple president, was driving us back. While we got into the car, Gurudev started to chastise me for not listening to him. I was not sure which instruction I had missed this time. Then he started calling me, you rascal, you fool, and so on. So the temple president was at the seat. He was driving. He asked Gurudev, now, Maharaj, what did he do, Then Srila Gurudev looked at the temple president. He said, I had a dream. And in the dream, Radha Krishna refused to listen to me. And and I was like, what? It was your dream. I was thinking in myself, Srila Gurudev, it's your dream. But what I also appreciated was Srila Gurudev was so concerned about me, even in the dream, that I wasn't listening to him. And that was amazing. Generally, Srila Gurudev, he mostly has transcendental dreams. He dreams about devotees, he dreams about Prabhupada, and it's always on the spiritual side. And he's always serious about everything. And so I think he probably only reveals it to very select few about his dreams and talks about them. And then another time concerning dreams, I remember this was in Dallas, he came running to my room, he said, Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna. I was thinking I must have done something wrong, and I was just waiting. He came into my room, looked at me, said, I just had a dream about Prabhupada. I had a wonderful dream. And then my interest was piqued, and I was thinking, what was this dream? I was wondering, what would he say? He looked at me for a little bit, and I looked at him, and then he said, I'm not telling you what I dreamed, I'm not going to tell you what I dreamt, Then he looked at me again, and then he turned around, walked away, and I was thinking, why did he tell me that? Now I really want to know what the dream was all about. So I think Gurudev was again testing me. That's how I see it. And you want to see how he reacted, Now, Srila Gurudev also has an amazing quality about reading minds. Sometimes people may think as disciples we may fantasize and say things, but I'm sure many of our God brothers and God sisters have experienced that. I was walking behind Gurudev and I was thinking of a particular devotee and how that devotee was serving Gurudev so nicely. And I was thinking, Srila Gurudev is so pleased with this devotee. Just as I was thinking, Srila Gurudev, without turning, he said, and he mentioned that devotee. That devotee is continuing their devotional service from previous lives. Otherwise, they could not have done for me what they did in this life. I was like shocked. How did he know I was thinking of this personality? So that was one of the nice things. There's another thing, though, about Gurudev is that when I found very early in my service, he did not like it if I was questioning him or if I was forceful with my opinions. He didn't mind it if it was the managers. They could be forceful with him, but as his secretary, he didn't like it. He even told me, you shouldn't talk to me like this. And he would shut me down quickly with either a stare or he would just tell me, shut up. Now, his daily schedule, which may have changed a little bit over the years, but when I was with him, generally he would get up around 3:35 in the morning. He has this alarm which has a very interesting melody in it, you know. Normally, when I go to bed, as soon as I close my eyes, I'm hearing the alarm go off in Srila Gurudeva's room. I'm thinking, I just lie down. What happened? So I remember that melody very well. Now at 3:35, he'd get up, and then he'll go straight to his bathroom and brush his teeth and wash his hands and feet, and then he'll chant. He wouldn't take shower immediately because he trained himself to go to toilet first and then take a shower. So he wouldn't take a shower until he evacuates. So yeah, during the time he goes to brush his teeth and come back, I must collect his old clothing for laundry. I must get his lota filled with water. He has a silver lota. I don't know if you all remember. And he also has an achaman cup where he must be filling it up so that he could use his tilak, or he purifies his hands for Gayatri, or just simply for purification. And he usually has lots of things he wants to do for the day, and he will ask me to make arrangements to meet with people or phone calls, um, either before breakfast, if he wants to meet with people during breakfast or during lunch, or to get the verse for a Srimad Bhagavatam class. He may want me to go through the verse and pick out some verses that he can use in the classes. And he will also want to find out in those days who's cooking for him, what is their menu sometimes, and he may change the menu and so on. Sometimes he may want to meet with the managers, and there will also be phone call arrangements, appointments he wants. By 4:30 a.m., he's ready to go to the temple for Mangala Arati. Now in Mayapur or Vrindavan, he only goes to the temple to do Arati during Mangala Arati. Yeah, I've seen him done that a few times. He loves to do Arati during Mangala Arati. Otherwise, in Mayapur, generally, I saw that he will stay in his room and chant. He may meet some senior devotee in the Dham to ask some question because he's a GBC, or he will chant with them in his room. Once His Holiness Indradumna Swami came, and he went into the room, and well, they made an arrangement to chant. And I'm not sure if Gurudev invited Maharaj or Maharaj wanted to chant with Gurudev. Um, and Srila Gurudev liked Indradumna Swami very much, very nice. He really liked him a lot. Anyway, after 30 minutes, Maharaj comes out of the room, he opens the door, and as he's walking past me, he says, "Oh boy, that was intense," and he walked away. So, Gurudev, when he sits, he has in his whole table, he transformed the table into like an altar, pictures, and he focuses on his chanting. A few times he had asked me to sit with him, and he will chant. Now when you are chanting with Gurudev, you are chanting really nicely. You feel it. Okay, he's chanting, you can hear him, you can also hear your own chanting becoming better. He's very powerful like that. um After Mangalarati, generally he would chant in the temple room for 30, maybe 40 minutes before he goes back to his room, either to study scriptures, or memorize some verses he wants to, or I've seen him make phone calls sometimes. And then he will chant alone in his room until breakfast if he's not giving class. He even may meet some devotees during this period. Um, Breakfast is usually between 8 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. He has three different types of fruits, and he always wanted, when I was doing service, he wanted some figs and date. He liked them soaked daily for his breakfast. And then there should be a single grain item like upma or flat rice, or sometimes he will even have pancakes or bagels. but those were rare, special and rare. And he always wanted sandish, as far as I remember. Um, so everything I saw, the way he was taking breakfast was centered around how Srila Prabhupada also ate, you know. It may not be exactly because he adjusts what he wants, but it's very close. And he said that everything he learned was from Prabhupada. And he's very observant, so he must have observed Prabhupada so nicely that everything he did was he was imitating Prabhupada the way Prabhupada acted. And because he knew, he also said that he has never met anyone who was as wonderful morally, ethically, such a glorious example in as a person, Prabhupada. So he wanted to be like Prabhupada. Now, during breakfast, he would invite devotees, and then when um, he would, it's interesting. He would watch them how they eat, and then he would tell me, "You stay there in case just stay there." And so I would be there watching also. Then when they didn't know how to eat some items or they mix incorrectly, Srila Gurudev would open his mouth out. They won't know. The guest doesn't know, but Gurudev will he'll do this. He's open his mouth out and look at me and say, like like a little kid. He'll make faces at them, while they are not watching, and he'll look at me as if, oh, look at this person. They don't even know what they're doing. It's very hilarious and funny. He has that New York humor in him. He was always having problems with eating fruits, I remember, especially I think it was apple. So he told me once that every time he eats apple, he burps. And he says he can taste the apples whenever he burps or something like that. Um, I had read about digestion in the health books, and so I told him that because he is mixing fruits and grains together, maybe his digestion is not able to handle that. So I just suggested that maybe he could stew the apples, and it might help, instead of eating raw apples. So he said, "Okay, I like your proposal." So then he said, you start stewing them. So yeah, so I would stew his apples. And after a couple of days, he called me and said, seems that the stewed apples are working, and I'm no more burping and feeling uncomfortable. Then he gave me his famous look, you know, guess what, Radha Krishna? We have a breakthrough. As far as I know, he had apple stewed for some time after that. I'm not sure if he changed after, thereafter. Um, when I was traveling with him, he would protect me in his own way. Um, Once a devotee, temple president devotee, had some management problem, and he told me and asked me what I would do. And I suggested a solution, and the TP was very happy, and he said, "Oh, this sounds good." But later he went and told Gurudev about his problem and what I had suggested, and he was telling Gurudev, "Oh, that was a good idea." Then Gurudev told him, "Oh, Radhakrishna doesn't know anything about this kind of problem. He's from Singapore. You shouldn't involve him in such matters." So that devotee came back to me and said, "Yeah, but they told me that I shouldn't yeah, take advice from you. I didn't say anything. I kept quiet." And then and because I know Gurudev must have a good reason. And so later on, I found out that Gurudev didn't want to actually lose me to this devotee because he was looking for people to help him in his temple. So Srila Gurudev didn't want him to have that idea. So that was nice. And another time, it was during, I mean, there were many different occasions, but I just want to highlight some of them. So another time was when Kustuba was getting married. So Shilaguru came to me and said, I'm going to conduct Kustuba's marriage ceremony. I don't want you to be there. I don't want you to watch the marriage ceremony at all. And then he walked away. Obviously, I know why. He didn't want me to think, yes. Um, at this time, I think there were a few brahmachari disciples that Srila Gurudev wanted them to be taking sannyas. Already like two or three of them got married, and so Srila Gurudev wasn't happy. And so when Kustuba was getting married, he didn't want me to be there. He didn't want me to have the idea of also getting married or something like that. Yeah, so generally, after breakfast, Srila Gurudev would go and rest for about 10 minutes. He would call it power napping, you know. He was very good about it, you know. He times it so well. Of course, sometimes he keeps his alarm also, but he would just do. As soon as you're thinking, oh, you know, Gurudev is going to sleep longer, and maybe I'll have a little more breathing time. And just as I'm thinking, Srila Gurudev will walk out of his room and say, Radha Krishna, come, I want you to do these things, and da da da, like that. Um, Generally, around 9:30 in the morning, he may want me to sit in some of the meetings, and sometimes he may not want me around. And I remember once in Mayapur, he was to meet with a very high-powered couple and devotee couple, and he told me to sit in the meeting. Then 10 minutes before the meeting, he told me, you know, I don't want you to be in the meeting because, you know, you will figure out what is happening. You're too intelligent for these kind of things. Then he said, call Gopal, Gopal Raj. He's the right one for this. He will not know what's happening. Now, in the meetings, the morning meetings, they usually or generally they go until lunchtime. And Srila Gurudev's lunchtime is at that during those period was around 1:30, and he will eat for maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And generally, lunch is his biggest meal of the day, and he ate lightly in the evening. Um, when I was traveling in the early time, he used to take milk with peppermint, and later he said he just couldn't digest milk at all. He didn't want it, and he dropped it. In the night, he might take some ginger tea or chamomile tea. Eventually, he stopped taking much in the evening. Occasionally, he'll take sometimes, but I found mostly he stopped. Um, when he was in SMU, in the evening, he would take some maybe some soup, some toast, or a little bit of spaghetti or crackers, stuff like that. Because he was using a lot of his intellectual energy and he was hungry by the time he came back from school. At lunchtime, generally, he would invite different devotees to talk either about management or ISKCON, about just their life, how they're doing, or just to see how, you know, or to catch up with them, sometimes with God brothers, sometimes with disciples. As I mentioned, lunch would go for 45 minutes to an hour. Um, During the SMU days, he would take lunch mostly alone, you know, and it would be very short. Um, when I'm serving with him, he'll talk to me about politics. He'll talk to me about his school. He'll talk to me about different devotees and philosophy. Sometimes he would ask my opinion about certain things he's thinking about. Um, so once when I was serving him, he said, "Oh, you know, I don't like to see you at all. You know, all of you are all wearing dhotis and tilak and staying in the temple. You're having such a good time, and all I have to do is go to the university and study." So then I assured him. I said, "Shri Gurudev, what you're doing is a different level of preaching, and not many devotees can do. Very few. It's a rare soul that can do what you're doing. You know, we can only admire you for your abilities. You know." And he said that may be true, but I don't like it. We shouldn't think Gurudev was, you know, like very happy just going to the school and college like that. He always wanted to be with devotees and do things with the devotees. Now, as his secretary, I seldom cooked for him, but when I was his servant, um, I would I was when I was his servant and cook during SMU days, I would cook every day actually, every lunch. Mostly he was pleased with my cooking. The only time he wasn't happy was when, as I mentioned earlier, all the food items or the prasadam all looked brown. He said, "It all looks brown. I don't like it." You know? In general, I never cooked when I was traveling, except once maybe. Um, what was it? He had come from Yeah, the way he asked me to cook for him was in January of 1997. He had just come back from the airport and he found out I was in Dallas at that time. I had just flown in maybe a few days earlier, and so he called me, and then I was walking with him. He told me to walk with him, and then he said, Radha Krishna, I want you to cook lunch for me when I'm in school. Do it from Monday to Friday, maybe the weekends. I'll get the others to cook, but I really need you to cook for me. Um, and then the way he said it, it's funny though. He said, all these ladies here, I asked them to cook. They're cooking like it is the Last Supper, a feast every day. I cannot honor them like this. I get very tired. I cannot focus. I mean, they really want to cook very nicely, and I appreciate that, but I cannot take like that. Huh? They don't cook simple and light dishes. You can do this for me, right? And of course, I said I would be happy to cook for him. And he said, but be there for breakfast, every breakfast, because different cooks will be cooking. I want you to make sure that they are cooking properly and making sure that it's not over the too much for me. Yeah. So I promised, and I would be there for breakfast to check on the cooks. The first time I ever cooked for Gurudev, apart from the small breakfast item, or I cooked lunch for Gurudev, was in Mayapur. This was, I think, in 93, um, during the GBC meetings. For some reason, he wanted me to cook, and he told Gopal Raj not to cook. And then he said, you can stop all your secretarial work, and he would ask other servants to do the task while I was doing. This was just after morning breakfast at 9, maybe 10 o'clock. He said he had invited his god brothers at 12:30. So he said he wanted some South Indian dish. Um, and the lunch is around 12:30, and he had invited, I think, 12 god brothers. I made a quick menu. I think it was a very simple menu. While they were taking prasadam, Srila Gurudev really was happy with the meal. He came running to the kitchen and he stood at the doorway. His head was, at an angle. He smiled like a little kid. Um, and then he said, oh, that was so great meal. And then he said to me, when you cook, your mode of goodness just comes true. Bam. So at other times, I guess I was in disarray and don't know what I was doing. He never compliments me because I'm a secretary and I'm supposed to take all the heat. He even told me that. He said, "Who am I going to get angry with?" Now he took a humble position also in Dallas about cooking. He told me he didn't want anyone to cook for him for dinner. But what he did was he said, "I'm going to call them randomly and find out what they have in their refrigerator, and then I'll ask them to heat up and bring for my evening meals." But I guess after a while, all the devotees knew Srila Gurudev might call, and so they all prepared something. Yeah. And another nice one time I had with Srila Gurudev was I cooked a particular sabji, and then Srila Gurudev liked it so much. He came to the kitchen and then he thanked me. And then he said, what was the recipe? And then I told him this is what I did. And then he said, it's very similar to how Prabhupada cooked this. So I was happy I made him happy and he walked away. Yeah. Several times he complimented my cooking during his SMU days. And I remember when his guests complimented, he would tell them I wasn't cooking for Gurudev, but I was cooking for myself. He knew that they would come and tell me what he had said. And he rightly didn't want my ego to be inflated. So anyway, I was on a diet mostly, so I never ate most of the time I cooked. By the way, whenever Srila Gurudev said something nice, I'm always thinking, when will he throw his thunderbolt at me? When he was recovering from his surgery, 1999, Gurudev thought he could immediately eat properly. and go back to his normal routine. His surgeon also had a similar surgery and had told him that very next day he could do everything. And Srila Gurudev is a very competitive person, so he also wanted to get right back to his work after his surgery. So, um, but actually, devotees, all of us, we are very sensitive to things like surgery and so on, and we may heal fast, but still we are very sensitive to the anesthesia and all those medical intervention. Uh, so on the day, I think after his surgery, or the next day, he wanted to eat dokla. And when they brought it to him the next day the day after surgery, he took one bite of the dokla, but I believe he threw up because I wasn't there at the hospital. I was at the temple, and then I got a call saying, Gurudev wants to see you now. He wants you to come to the hospital. So we arranged, and when I reached the hospital, he called me to his side. And all devotees were standing all around. Who else was there? Um, Giridhari Swami was also there, and Guru Bhakti. Um, uh, yeah, a few other devotees. I can't remember now. Yeah. So then he called me to his side and he started telling me, I'm not able to eat. I don't know why. I can't eat. I'm throwing up. So I had told him about my father going through surgery, and I also told him what my father ate before he got better. So then, so Srila Gurudev said, "You told me about your father." Yeah, I said, "Yeah, but he only ate porridge, rice porridge." And so Srila Gurudev said, "Okay, maybe I should take rice porridge. And he agreed. So for the next 3 weeks, I cooked salty rice porridge, or we call it kanji, and some pickles. And so he took that. He took a little pickle, and in the beginning, I only gave him very little rice porridge. And he took a little, and then he said he felt good and he didn't throw up. And then after a few days, he said he was feeling much better. After 3 weeks, he got very well. But then what had happened was he started developing a very bad backache. And this was due to the clip left in his ureter by the surgeon. Anyway, he had to go through the whole process again the second time. By this time, Srila Gurudev had lost a lot of his weight, his strength. And again, I put him on 1 week of porridge. And then Dr. Jailal came and said, no, we have to now put more protein and change the diet. And after some time, Gurudev recovered. And this whole surgery saga was very special for Gurudev because he told me that those who had helped him and took care of him during this special period, they all have special blessings and mercy. That's what he said. I was like, wow, Shri Gurudev is so merciful. Now, there was one time this was in 97, when the email, everyone was starting to use email. So we all have our own email ID or handle or whatever you call. Uh, so as you all know, mine is Radha KTKG. And so different devotees started using TKG after their names and so on. So Kamadenu, God bless her, also made her own email ID and she spelled it as Kama TKG. So when Gurudev saw that, he called me and said, why is she using this? When people look at it, they think I am in karma or what? And then he said, go and tell her I'm not having this karma there. Tell her to change it. When I told her, Kamadini go, really, Radha Krishna, is that what you say? Have I got to change it? Gurudev said that. And so then finally, he did not want anyone outside of devotees or disciples who are his well-wishers to find fault in anything that he does. So Srila Gurudev was very careful about that, how he's represented and so on. So Kamadeni had to change email ID. Now, another time in Dallas, this was in much earlier time, he called me to his room and then he was looking outside intently from his office windows. Um, And he pointed at some of the devotees and then who were walking towards the temple. He said, look at them. These devotees are going through this because they have nothing. They have no wealth and they're trying to be good devotees. But because they are poor, many of them, their bad qualities come out. Then he said, poverty brings out the bad qualities of most people. When he was saying that, I could see there was so much compassion, so much love he had for all these devotees. Another time, he saw someone walking down the street, and he said, "This person, I don't like this person. I know this person. They should not be in this community. They'll destroy everything." He was so serious. And then he asked me, "Go get Mathuranath. I want him to deal with this new person." And I'm sure many of the managers would have recognized this is how Gurudev was. He was so protective of Dallas Yatra. He wanted to make sure everything good was going on. Um, yeah, and then this is another situation where there was a devotee who said nasty things about me to Gurudev. And when I accidentally made a mistake, he told Gurudev that I was always planning to undermine Gurudev. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the whole story. He told me he didn't want me to be secretary after that. And he said I was getting too familiar and I should stay in Dallas and serve there. I agree, but I was not happy with my god brother. In any case, I was told to teach this devotee what to do because he was to take over my role as secretary, etc. So I was teaching him again. I was telling him what to do. That one thing, and then I told him you have to be very careful because Srila Gurudev will chastise heavily when you do some mistake, and you have to learn to tolerate and just do your service. Now the devotee was so arrogant, he answered, "No problem. I'm not the body. I will not be affected." And I told him, yes, you're not the body, but the way Gurudev speaks and chastises you, you will be thinking you are the body and you will become angry, etc. But this devotee wasn't willing to listen to me. He dismissed my concerns for his welfare. Anyway, he traveled for 3 months, and during his service, he was always bad mouthing Srila Gurudev to different devotees, particularly to Gurudev's god brothers. Eventually, after he left the service 3 months later, he continued to find faults with Gurudev in Mayapur. And then he left Krishna consciousness altogether. Prior to becoming a devotee, he was a Buddhist. He became a Buddhist again, and then he went back to his country of origin. He got married. And I said earlier, I was most of the devotees who served Gurudev, we were never inimical or antagonistic to Gurudev's chastisement. We may get a little annoyed, we may get angry sometimes or frustrated, but we were never inimical. Um, but the lesson here is, Gurudev is such a powerful personality that if you do anything wrong, immediately Krishna will remove you from that place. And this devotee who was bad mouthing Gurudev, he left the movement. I could never trace him where he went after that. Yeah. Srila Gurudev was so kind to all of us. I say he was kind because um, he corrected me and chastised me so much so that I can serve Gurudev better. And then not only that, after chastising, he would still accept my services. The difficulty is because of our false ego. But he wanted to get rid of our false ego quickly. He wanted it gone quickly so we can surrender purely. Srila Gurudev also did not like it if devotees did not take initiative to do things correctly. If you see something is wrong, he wanted us to act on it, fix it, or get someone to fix it. He hates it, or I shouldn't say hate. He loathes if if we just stand around and wait for someone else to fix it. These are important qualities because they are in the mode of goodness. If you see, for example, if you see paper cups or plates around the temple property, we should stop and pick them up because the property is Krishna's abode. No? Like in Dallas is Radha Kalachandji, in Houston is Radha Neelamadhava. So we represent the people coming should see our property nice and so on. So that's what Srila Gurudev wanted. And if we simply just walk away, then we are no Brahmanas. We are not becoming Brahminical in our cultivation. Vaishnavas are better than Brahmanas, so we should be doing the right thing. And if you don't do it, and Srila Gurudev finds out, he would always ask, why didn't you do it? He would say, what were you thinking? Usually, we find that many times we are not thinking at all about anything. We just act on our senses impulsively. He did not want us to act from the senses or mind, but rather from the soul or point of view, he would say, not thinking is your problem. Why are you not thinking for whom you're doing? That should be the criteria. Ask if you're not sure. Another time when I couldn't do something properly, he said, the reason why you couldn't do is because your desire is not strong enough. He said you can accomplish anything if your desire is strong enough. Of course, when he says desire, it means Krishna conscious activities. Um, he's very compassionate actually. We don't see much of it, but I remember one time he wanted to initiate a young lady, um, and asked another devotee to come and ask my opinion, and I was really amazed, because generally Gurudev would decide, and or he would ask the managers, but anyway he asked me. And when the devotee asked me what I thought about this young lady, I said she's new and she's not really ready yet. She's just been around for maybe a year, so she's not ready yet. And she doesn't know many things, etiquette, proper, all those things. Then the devotee went back and told Gurudev. And then a little while later, the devotee came back and very happily said to me, Gurudev said, you're not compassionate enough and that you're too strict and blah, blah, blah. So then I told, this is my view. I'd said, you should understand my service is to protect Srila Gurudev. I don't want anyone unqualified to be initiated. And I also said, listen, um, if Srila Gurudev wants to initiate her, it is entirely up to him. But you told me he wanted my opinion and I gave it. So anyway, Srila Gurudev did initiate the devotee, and I learned that from that particular incident that Gurudev was extremely compassionate and wanted to help the young lady in her Krishna consciousness, because they are new, they are very enthusiastic, and Gurudev wanted to help that lady with that enthusiasm. From my part, I failed to see that aspect, and I was happy to be corrected. Now, it's 9:50. Um, one of the things is he had such a amazing impact on me, Gurudev, because whenever I drink, right, whenever I drink, I see how Gurudev drinks. Even now, not all the time, but I see it, because the particular things reminds me of Gurudev. If it's like a silver cup or something, and then I see Gurudev drinking. Whether it's water or juice, when I drink, I see Gurudev. When I eat something special, I see how Gurudev will eat that particular sabji. Or I see him how he eats the bread or how he bites into the pizza. I would also think how he would hold them and bring to his mouth. And as I mentioned earlier about tilak, so when I put on tilak, it always never fails to, you know, I remember Gurudev putting tilak. I see how he puts his tilak. And I remember the science behind how he does it with a piece of cloth. And the same way over the years, whenever I go to the airport, when I bought the airlines, I am thinking of how Gurudev would rush to his seat. He wants to go first on the aircraft, and then how he puts away his bags. And at the same time, whenever the aircraft lands, Srila Gurudev would get up immediately. The air hostess would sometimes say, Sir, would you sit down? And Gurudev would just get up. And Gurudev said, I don't want to waste any time in this situation. I want to go. I need to be preaching and, spreading Krishna consciousness. I don't want to waste my time. So he would be the first one to get out of the aircraft from the business class. Uh, And then at the same time, when I wake up in the morning, I've seen Gurudev also sometimes when I go into his room to wake him up in case he's a bit late. He will always get down on his bed and he'll pay obeisance to Prabhupada. And I would also do the same thing in my life. I've never stopped doing that. And then if I say something sarcastic to someone, I remember how good he was at being sarcastic with anyone. Srila Gurudev had wicked, wit. His wit was so wicked, like a New Yorker, they're so good at it, yeah. And I also remember that one time he had a long meeting. In that meeting, it went over 10 o'clock or what, and I was tired. I was sitting waiting for him, and I fell asleep sleeping sitting on the chair. And then while I was sleeping, I felt someone was pushing my leg, and then I heard Gurudev, Radha Krishna, Radha, and he was kicking me. So I got up from my thing and said, "Oh, Gurudev." He said, "How can you sleep before your guru sleeps?" So, and then another time, I remember this kicking incident in Hong Kong. He called me to his office room, and then I was talking to him, and then he wanted me to do something I failed to do. Then he got unhappy with me. So then he pushed me, manhandled me, and then he started to, at the door, he kicked me and pushed me out. And then I went back to my office. I wasn't even thinking anything. I just thought Srila Gurudev wasn't happy with me, and that's all. And I continued to do my office work. And then there is a intercom in the
Radha Krishna
office.
Prabhu,
Yes,
Radha Krishna Prabhu,
yes,
Devkinanda Juhu. See, uh, it's 9:30 here for
yes,
us,
yes, Prabhu, I'm ending soon.
and yeah, so I told Nityan Prabhu just left, so
Yes, yes,
I
he
just
told
wanted
me
to request
before.
that.
He did tell me earlier he'll leave here. So as I
Okay.
was saying, what was I saying in Hong Kong? Yeah, so there was an intercom, and in the intercom rang, and Srila Gurudev said Radha Krishna, and so then I answered the intercom, and then the first thing he said, "Do you know that the body of the disciple belongs to the spiritual master?" And then I said, "Yes." He said, "How do you know?" Then I recounted the pastime of Sanatan Goswami with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I told him I read it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then he said, "Oh, okay, good," and then he hung up the intercom. So anyway, since devotees who are feeling that it's going too long, I'll stop here. I'll take questions. I think Kunti Devi Mataji asked me what is my most memorable experience with Gurudev. Actually, whenever Gurudev is very kind and loving, and in fact, everything is wonderful for me. But one I can say, one incident that happened early on, I indicated that one devotee, he set me up and said nasty things to Gurudev, and so Gurudev told me to stay in Dallas to do the service. And during that period, Srila Gurudev would be, because of that incident, and I don't want to go into it, takes a long time to describe what had happened. Srila Gurudev would give me he'd chastise me a lot and give me a difficult time, whatever the service was. Um, in Vrindavan, he did not talk to me for 6 days. I was traveling with him, he did not talk. So you can imagine how difficult it was for me to try to do the service, and he wouldn't talk to me. And anyway, in Dallas, um, he he was uh, he told me to stay, and then he left for his trip around the world, and he came back. He left in September, August or September. Then he came back in sometime in October or November time frame. So the first thing he came back, and we were all at the temple room. And then as soon as he saw me, he came to me and said, I want to see you. Come upstairs to my room. And I thought, Srila Gurudev is going to chastise me again. Because before he left, he told me, I'm not done with you, which I recounted the last time I spoke. So anyway, when I went to his room, he went to his bedroom, and then he sat on his chair, and then he told me to sit next to his bed, and I sat down, and we were chanting. He was chanting, and then he said, "So how have you been doing?" I said, "I was just doing all my work, whatever I was asked in the temple. I've been doing it." And then he said, "So what do you think?" I said, "Well, it's okay, it's nice, but I miss serving you." So as soon as I said I miss serving you, he immediately said, "I also miss having you around me." So, before that, he was giving me such a difficult time. But when he said that, that was one of the most memorable experience, because uh, the problem was started by someone else, and Srila Gurudev thought I was the culprit. But actually, in the end, he found out who the person who did the bad things. So he never said, "I'm sorry," or anything like that. All he said is, "I also want you to be with me." And then at that time, I think Rajacharan was traveling and he left back to Australia. No, he was still around. Rajacharan was there. So he said, "Rajacharan cannot do secretarial work, but he's good with other things. I like him around him. I like him to be around me, and I want that." And then he said, "You can do all the secretarial work and you can do other things when I want you to do." And then he said, "It'll be very nice. Both of you can travel with me." And that was a very nice uh, time and experience. One other time was when we were splitting for in 1995 April in Vrindavan. Um, we took two cabs actually. Yeah, from Vrindavan. We took two cabs because Rachan and myself, we were going back to Australia. I couldn't come back with Gurudev because of visa situation at that time. So then we drove towards Delhi. Srila Gurudev was going straight to the airport, but he told Rajachan Prabhu and myself to go to a congregation member's place to drop off some documents. When our flight was in the night, Srila Gurudev's flight was, I think, in the afternoon. So this was in the morning. And just before coming towards Delhi, there was a T junction, and the two cabs stopped. One sign indicated Delhi, and another sign something else. I can't remember. So Gurudev was going directly to the airport, and we were to the congregation member's home. He had actually wanted to talk to us before we split, so he stopped the car. So we got out, and I think I guess he knew what was going to happen. He always knew, Srila Gurudev was so perceptive. So I got out and went to his car. He came out, and I paid obeisance to his lotus feet. And for the first time ever, he bent down and ruffled my shaven head and gently rubbed my shoulders. And he said, "Okay, Radha Krishna, get your visa. We will see you in Dallas." Little did I know that it will be almost a year and a little bit before we meet again. His voice sounded so different than usual. It was emotional also. He didn't really want me to leave at that time. I felt it very strongly. So yeah, Mother Kunti, that's some wonderful recollection for me. Yeah. So if there's any other questions, if anyone wants to ask, feel free to do so. Otherwise, we can end. All right. So yes, Dayal Govinda Prabhu.
No, Prabhu. Yeah, I was just waiting. Somebody ask any question and then
Oh,
I
okay.
can.
Yeah.
If anyone wants, I can ask a couple of questions. You just
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Haribol Prabhu. So much. That was just so loaded. And I'm just remembering how much Gurudev loved you, and also reflecting on, when he had the surgery and also the night times. I was reflecting on, I was one who was not around in the evening because of what I represented, management, doing things. So, but I'll talk to that when I get an opportunity. But Gurudev is so proud of you. I just wanted to publicly, encourage you and hope that you're well, and yearning for your association. I hope soon. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Hare Krishna.
Enjoy.
And I also want to say, Gurudev loved you so much. He'd always, in GBC meetings and so on, he'd always quote, they say, my disciple Yudhishthira, he would do this way, that way, like that. Was so proud of your managerial abilities. Yeah. So you should remember.
Good. Keep reminding me, because I never
Yes.
heard it from him.
Yeah, he won. He never praised me at all.
I
Not
know.
directly. Yeah. Okay, Nandini wants to say something.
Thank you. Hari.
Go ahead.
Nandini Mataji, you can
Haribol?
unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me, Radha Krishna Prabhu?
Yeah, can we see a video?
Well, no,
Okay.
but what I please accept my obeisances, Radha Krishna Prabhu. It's so
Thank you.
wonderful to hear all your ecstatic pastimes, your purification from all the chastisement of Gurudev. I have a few, just a few comments. One, you got, because you were so close with Srila Gurudev, you got so much purification. I do remember sometimes Gurudev would really blast me, and then he would call me up on the phone, Radha Krishna. I'd answer the phone and he'd say, Nandini, this is your guru. Are you okay? It was just melted my heart, Radha Krishna. Also, I remember you talked about when you cooked for Srila Gurudev one time and everything was brown and he wasn't happy with that. And I so remember a few times when I cooked for Gurudev, he would mention that, how everything had to be very color coordinated, different, beautiful presentation. And when I think I put that post, but when we had Tamal Krishna's Veggie Garden in Puerto Rico, I remembered that so well, and I would make these plates and people would comment, wow, this is so beautiful, appetizing, and I really felt that was Gurudev's mercy.
Nice.
I wonder if you could remember a conversation we had, I believe outside of the temple. I told you about a dream I'd had with Prabhupada. I don't know if you remember this, it was many years ago.
Yeah,
And
I'm
after I
getting old.
after I told you that dream, you went to Srila Gurudev and told him that you felt Nandini should get second initiation.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Mara. So it just melted my heart. You were so compassionate and kind. And I will just leave you with this note. When Srila Gurudev gave me second initiation, Radha Krishna, he leaned in my ear and he said, Nandini, now I've given you your angel wings. Everybody had their unique relationship with Srila Gurudev, and I had mine as well. So I also wanted to say that one time I visited Dallas from Puerto Rico, and Maturanath put me up in your room where you used to be the secretary. And I felt so purified being in that room, Radha Krishna. I had many memories of sitting in there doing your correspondence on the computer. And all glories to your service. And you received so much mercy from Srila Gurudev, Radha Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, one time some God brothers, they they were speaking to Gurudev, and they were talking about getting mercy of the spiritual master. And I wasn't there. So then they came back and told me, Srila Gurudev said that he had given you so much mercy, he doesn't know what's going to happen to you. That was so funny.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. Your memories have really melted my heart. This is the second time. I think you should be on again. I'm sure you have so many more memories to share. And perhaps we'll go to Houston sometime in the near future and be able to get your association personally, Prabhu.
I hope to see
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Yeah,
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
How is Srila Gurudev during GBC meetings? He's very focused on doing what is required of him. Usually he's busy, so we don't often see him during the days, but we have to be ready for lunch because he brings in all his God brothers. One thing is that he loves to actually invite his God brothers and feed them prasadam. So one time, one of the devotees who's in charge of preparing all the bogas and buying and so on. So he went to Gurudev and said, Gurudev, we cannot afford to invite so many people. Maybe we should go and get money from the different disciples of other gurus who are coming also. Gurudev got so angry. He said, you can't do these things. This is not the right. They are my guests. They are not your guests. You go and get money from disciples, my disciples. Or somehow or other, you go and collect the donation, pay all the bills. And then at one time, the last 95, when Gurudev was reprimanded by the GBC, I remember I was alone in the room and all the others were not there. So Gurudev came from the meetings on top of Lotus building. So Gurudev came down. When he came down, he looked at me, he said, follow me. I went into his room and then he said, Radha Krishna, all I wanted to do was to learn and share with ISKCON, all the devotees. I wasn't trying to do anything different. Now this has to do with Narayan Maharaj's case during that time. A lot of devotees were going and seeing him. So Srila Gurudev said, I wasn't trying to, put Srila Prabhupada down or anything. At that time, I just wanted to learn more so that I can use it in the service of Srila Prabhupada. So always his mood was to please Srila Prabhupada. So I heard during GBC meetings, I wasn't privy to go into the meeting rooms. Whenever they had contentious problems or anything, they would look to Srila Gurudev. And one time, I think, I forgot this Maharaj, he left his body. I can see his face, but I can't remember. Suhotra Swami, yeah. So he said Gurudev's mind was like a diamond. It could cut through all kinds of nonsense and come to the main problem, and he would give the answers so succinctly that everyone would agree with Gurudev. In the last GBC meeting, Srila Gurudev went. What he was doing was he went to each of his God brothers. He held them, he hugged them, and he also asked for forgiveness, and that was interesting. And I just wanted to mention that during the GBC meeting. Yeah. Hi. When Gurudev left suddenly, is there anything I wanted to say or ask him? No, but I was, his body was placed in front of Radha Madhava, and I was there standing with the rest of the disciples also. We were carrying the body. I looked at the deities and I said, why? Why? It was so difficult. I also was thinking why I wasn't there. I was thinking if I had died and Gurudev survived, it would have been so much better. Yeah, that's how I felt. In hindsight, we can say we want to ask so many things, but anyway, that's hindsight. Yeah. All right. This question is difficult. All right, it's almost 10:30. So what do you think, Dayal?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for sharing all your thoughts. And by the interest of time, if nobody has questions, then we can wrap it up. And as per Saibya Mataji's instructions, I'm sharing that on 20th, there will be a program on Srila Gurudev. It will be published in TKG Sangha Group. Thank you so much once again, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Vanchakabhitrabhyascha kripa sindhubhyo bhaitanam pānubhyo vaishnavyo namo Ananda Kodi Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, all of you. Hari Bol.
Thank you, everyone.